Tēnā koutou, I'm Amber Walls and I'm here alongside Borni, who will introduce himself in a few minutes. Just to give a brief introduction to our webinar series, they were produced as part of an international Culture, Health and Wellbeing conference, which was held in August in 2021. So the conference was led by the UK Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, but was for the first time ever fully digital, making it possible for presenters from 30 different countries across the globe to come together to share practice, insights and research over 3 really fabulous days. And Toi-a-Iwi was invited by the conference team in the UK to curate content specifically for Aotearoa. So the 3 webinars we're sharing with you are the content that we put together. So the first webinar features a welcome and overview from Minister Sepuloni, and that's followed by Riki, Bennett and Eynon Delamere, illustrating the healing power of taonga pūoro and the idea of toi arts being intrinsically part of the Māori lived experience. Then session 2 features Kim Morton from Ototahi Creative Spaces, Kieran Fox from Mental Health Foundation, Ryan Reynolds from Gap Filler, Hannah Wilson from Rekindle, and Aaron Hapuku from the University of Canterbury. So they came together to discuss the work they're doing individually and at times collectively in Ototahi Christchurch, using creativity as a pathway to adapting post-disaster. And then session 3 provides insights into Aotearoa's rich body of Natoi Rangatahi youth arts practice, drawing from Western Indigenous Māori, Pacific Island worldviews and creative practices. And first of all, Huia O'Sullivan from Ngā Rangatahi Toa in Auckland shared the really incredible work that they're doing with young people in Auckland. And Molly Mullen and myself share 2 different research projects from the University of Auckland. Both of these are focused on the practice environment and issues of funding and resourcing, and also share young people's perspectives on how the arts uniquely promote their mental health and well-being. But before watching the webinars, I'd just like to give you a really quick overview of Toi-a-Iwi for people who don't know us. So we're a national network. We're free, open to anyone interested in the relationship between the arts and well-being. We're really welcoming you all to join us. Go to our website, sign up, or get in touch with us to find out more. Our aim is to work together to nurture a thriving, innovative, interdisciplinary field of practice, supported by really great research, leadership and advocacy. And we focus on three key areas of work. So those include advocacy, generating and sharing resources, and connecting and strengthening the diverse community of practice across Aotearoa and internationally. And Borni is going to tell you a little bit more about what that's going to look like going forward. So we're not a formal organisation. Toi-a-Iwi is just an alliance of individuals, organisations and collectives at present. And we work across diverse disciplines and contexts, including art, health, education, community, social care, local government, research and policy environments. And I guess the thing that unites us is that we share a commitment to a vision for a healthier, more flourishing New Zealand through the arts, and to seeing the arts fully valued as a vital contributor to health and well-being for everyone. We know from our own work and from a really flourishing, rich international research base that the arts can contribute really powerfully to individual and community well-being. So, for example, they enrich our everyday lives, they connect our communities, they help us to describe and make sense of our world, and are a really valuable resource in formal health and social care contexts. They're especially powerful in relation to mental health, loneliness, ageing, and social inequities, which are all really big problems, challenges facing Aotearoa, and their kind of unique contribution to helping us navigate our new COVID world has been really visible and really valued. So we have 4 guiding poles. We've put an image on the screen here for you to read through at your own pace. And these are our kind of guiding principles. So I'll just pause for a few minutes to let you read those, and then I'll pass you over to Borni. Kia ora.
Tēnā rā koutou katoa, ko Borni te Rongopai Tukiwaho tōku ingoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei kaupapa, kei te kaiwhakahaere o Taurima Vibes, ahau, me te kaitiaki o tēnei kaupapa te ora auaha. Kia ora koutou, my name is Borni te Rongopai Tukiwaho. I have a company called Taurima Vibes, and I'm lucky enough to be a part of the network that we call Te Ora Auaha. I'm here to just have a quick kōrero with you around what we are going to be doing over the next year and what our focus and what we hope our forecast and our aims are going to be. My role as we move forward is to be a part of our new organisational model, which is to provide a better backbone administration and project management support. So I am going to be the kaiwhakahaere, the kaitiaki, which is going to be sitting in a overall strategic leadership space. We meet, and we have been meeting periodically to inform strategic direction for this alliance. And moving forward, we have a couple of major focuses, and they are to support the development of arts, health and wellbeing practice in Aotearoa, to build the creative capability of artists, organisations and the sector as a whole, and promoting Aotearoa arts, health and wellbeing practice and research nationally, internationally, and to increase public awareness of the arts, health, hauora and wellbeing. We've been lucky enough to garner some funding, which has helped us to figure out the next step of where we're moving to. We will be running a series of webinars over the next 8 months to promote hauora and Aotearoa arts and to help build networks and capability across practitioners and organisations. Now, we're still in the framing space at the moment, and we're still figuring out what that looks like, how we can bring something to our landscape that's tangible and beneficial for everybody. So keep your eyes out, and we'll let you know as things roll out where we're going and what we're able to do. One thing we want everybody to understand, that this is not an us-them situation. We really are an open alliance, and we welcome any new ideas, and we welcome any new interest in becoming a part of who we are and what we do. So you'll find in this, in our website, you will find all the information you need. And if you want to be able to talk to someone or become a part of Te Ora Auaha, feel free to contact us soon. Kia ora koutou. See ya.
Kia ora koutou. My name's Briar Monro. I'm the Arts Practice Director for Community and Youth Arts at Creative New Zealand. If you're not familiar with Creative New Zealand, we're the National Arts Development Agency for Aotearoa New Zealand. Our purpose, and this is enshrined in the Act, which sets our purpose, is to encourage, promote and support the arts in New Zealand for the benefit of all New Zealanders. We do this through our funding programs. We do this through capability building, through policy development, and also through our advocacy program. Often this work is done in partnership with the arts sector and with other agencies. Creative New Zealand supported these artists to participate in the International Conference of Arts, Health and Wellbeing. And we did that through our Global Wayfinding program, which is part of our international team's mahi. This program helps artists to stay connected with their colleagues and with markets internationally, to share best practice through international forums and to explore some of the issues and challenges that are facing artists at that international level. So like, for example, sharing how each other responds to COVID or what best practice looks like in their areas of arts practice. New Zealand is seen internationally as being a leader in terms of arts and wellbeing. And Creative New Zealand saw this as an opportunity to strengthen an international understanding of arts, health and wellbeing practice in Aotearoa. We also saw it as an opportunity for practitioners to build their ability to articulate their practice to an international audience, and also as an opportunity to capture a fuller picture of this practice in Aotearoa and to share that here in Aotearoa. As an agency of central government, Creative New Zealand has a responsibility to the wellbeing of all New Zealanders. CNZ continues to fund a range of arts and wellbeing projects through all of our art forms, but particularly through our community arts, Pacific arts, Ngāpuhi Māori and youth arts portfolios. We're a keen supporter of Te Ora Aoha and can see great benefit in this ongoing and developing network of arts, health and wellbeing practitioners. Arts and wellbeing is one of the 4 focus areas also of our advocacy team, who continue to seek out opportunities to promote the role of arts and wellbeing to a wide range of stakeholders. So, for example, through local government, planning processes and platforms, and broader advocacy work as part of Mental Health Awareness Week. We also have a community arts toolkit which provides capability building, links and resources for the community arts sector. Creative New Zealand recognises and champions the incredible impact that the arts has on the wellbeing of New Zealanders. It's so exciting to see the great range of work that is happening in a range of contexts across the motu. 79% of young New Zealanders say that they feel excellent or good when doing creative things, and 61% of New Zealanders agree that the arts make an important contribution to community resilience and wellbeing. There's so much potential in this space, but we need to bring other funders and possible commissioners of arts, health and wellbeing activity on board to help them to understand the impacts and to help them to understand how to work with artists and arts practitioners. So we see this as our work going forward. We look forward to an ongoing conversation, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me about this area of arts, health and wellbeing and Creative New Zealand's role in this space, then please do. Ngā mihi kia koutou.
A tēnā koutou I te ao. A tēnei rā o Aotearoa e mihi kau atu kia koutou. Kia whakarewa tō tātou kaupapa I roto te reo tika. Anō reira he hono re kro re he maunga rongo o kirongo ki te whenua whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Hanga e te atu ngā kaumā whakahauti he wairua tika ki roto kia mātou. A tēnei o pununga tāne o pununga wahine tuko whakamoimiti ino kia koe e tēnei rangi. Toro mai ringa ka haki rongo kia mātou e whakamāmātua rahi mua I a mātou e tēnei wā. Toringa a te whai ki runga ki ngā whānau e pauri ana e moke ana I rutu ngā whārua tihi puta noa o te ao whānui tonu. Anei nā te inu ati kia koe e pā, korori ki tō ingua tapu. Āmene.
Āmene. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e tātou e. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e tātou e. Mauri ora. Tēnā rā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki te kaupapa o tēnei rā. Ko Waio, ko maunga pōhatu te maunga, ko Ohine Mataro te awa, ko Matātua te waka, ko Tūhoi te iwi, ko Ngāti Raka te hapa, ko Taitaia hape te marae, ko Tūtaka Ngāhau tōku tūpuna, ko Borni te Rongopai Tukiwaho tōku ingoa. Mōrena, atamari e koutou. Kia ora everyone, nau mai haere mai. Welcome to our part of the session. Welcome to our whenua, Aotearoa. My name is Borni te Rongopai Tukiwaho, and today my function is going to be to help guide you from each piece that we're going to present to you. Just a bit of a heads up, I don't know everything, so I've got this thing in my hand, so I'm going to be reading off that, and you might actually hear someone yell out the side to tell me to do all the things that I forget to do. Me kapai, kia ora. So one of the first things we're going to do at the top of today is I'm going to introduce you to my friends, and we're going to give you a little bit of a whakapapa, a little bit of a background around te ora auaha. They will speak for themselves and introduce themselves, but I'd like to pass you over now to Amber and Molly. Kia ora, everyone.
Tēnā koutou, ko Amber Walls, tōku inua. Hi everybody, I'm Amber Walls, and I'm here just to give you a little introduction to te ora auaha, alongside Molly.
Kia ora, ko Molly Mullen, tōku ingoa. I'm also a member of the Te Ora Auaha Creative Wellbeing Alliance Development Group. And the reason why we're here today is the development group working together to organise these collection of sessions to platform the distinct creative health and wellbeing practice that's happening here in Aotearoa. And it's come about through a collaboration between the different alliance members. Te Ora Auaha is the national network for anyone who's interested in the relationship between art, creativity, health and wellbeing. It has three main functions. The first is advocating for that area of practice. The second is both generating and sharing research. And the third is to really connect up and strengthen communities of practice, both here in Aotearoa and internationally. Anyone can sign up, it's free to join, and there should be a link to our website in the chat, but also on the Padlet later. Te Ora Auaha came about through a grassroots process. It wasn't something that was created and then a call put out for people to join. It came about through some quite on-the-ground conversations between people like Amber and others working in the sector who wanted more support, more connection. They organised a series of conversation events in 2017 that brought people together. The first one to really examine the state of the field and to look at common challenges and aspirations. And the second event was around forming some priorities, some strategies, as well as a common vocabulary, a sort of common conception of some of the core ideas behind, I guess, arts, health and wellbeing. So, for example, there's a shared understanding of well-being for Te Ora Auaha, of well-being being holistic. And that's here, we're informed by Pacific and Indigenous Māori conceptions of health that incorporate mind, body, spirit, and social worlds. So this is a relational and collective sense of health and well-being, with the individual's well-being viewed as inseparable from the well-being of whānau, community, and the wider environment. And so Amber's going to talk a little bit, I think, about how we got our name and some of the other history.
So our name, Te Ora Auaha, was gifted by Borni's mum. Thank you, Borni's mum.
Thanks, Mum.
Ora means to be alive, well and safe in te reo Māori. And Auaha translates broadly as to kind of shape or fashion or to create, being creative and innovative. So we work as a group, we work as an informal alliance of organisations. We're not an organisation in itself. We are a network of networks, if you like. We have administrative support from the University of Auckland Centre for Arts and Social Transformation and the Taumata Toi-a-Iwi Auckland Regional Arts Trust. And we're led by a development group of really passionate advocates for arts, health and wellbeing that represent different parts of the really diverse ecology of the field. So that includes things like arts therapies, public health, medical humanities, mental health, education, research, local government, youth and community development and social innovation. And just to say that the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Conference is really special to us because myself and three other development group members met at the conference back in 2017, I think in Bristol, in a really, really scorching hot marquee with really shocking jet lag. So it's really, thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity. It's really special to be back and we really look forward to connecting with you over the next few days. I'm going to pass you back to Borni.
Kia ora kōrua. So I'm going to read a couple of things before I forget. Bullet points. Apparently there's a thing called a Padlet. Is it a conference Padlet? A conference Padlet. We all find we're assuming quite a lot of people who are watching this are not from Aotearoa. So there is a glossary on there for you to have a look at based around our language, Te Reo Māori. I also invite you to do your own research. You're all academics. Have a look, see what you can find out about who we are, where we come from. You will find yourselves immersed in a lot of beauty. Kia ora, that's my gift to you. One of the other things that I need to speak to you about is today's lineup. So we have 3 presentations. 2 of them are from Tāmaki, Auckland, Tāmaki Makaurau. Our first one is going to be from Tāmaki, but in the middle we're going to stream off over into Ōtautahi, Christchurch, and then we'll come back to Tāmaki again. The middle and the last one will have a Q&A. The first one doesn't, just so you know. Now, before we move into the next session, I just want to have a little kōrero to you around what it means. What does the arts mean to us as Māori? Now, obviously, I can't speak for every Māori, but I think one of the main points to understand is that before Europeans arrived in Aotearoa, the idea of what arts is was not separate from who we are. Intrinsically, the idea of arts is a part of our being. It is how we breathe. We have kind of like 4 main areas of the arts that we live with. That's waiata singing, that's in our carvings, that's in our paintings, and that's in our weavings. Everything we do, or everything we did, brought all of these things together on a daily. Every single day. We lived, we breathed. It's part of our lived experience. So one of the things that you'll understand, or you'll probably try to get to understand today, is that one of the things that we're representing to you will have a through line of what it means to be a Māori as opposed to what is arts in the Māori. Arts in the world. Aroha mati. Toi. So before we move forward, I just want to let you know that our first session is going to be presented to you by Eynon Delamere. Is it Delamere? Aroha atu. Eynon Delamere and Riki Bennett. Before we do that, their mahi will speak for itself. But before we do that, we're going to go back to the key speech that you probably all heard this morning from Minister Carmel Sepuloni. So we'll move over to that now. Kia ora koutou.
Tēnā koutou katoa, talofa lava mā lōlelei, greetings. I'm pleased to be able to speak to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's great to be a part of the session on inequality in the global context and to be joined by Alex Coulter, Director of Arts and Health Southwest, Professor Richard Parrish, Chair for the National Centre for Rural Health and Care, and Professor Pascal Alote, Director of the UN University Institute of Global Health. Recording these words in advance of this session, I will very much look forward to tuning in for the performance by Capo Rushes composed by Sivan Horrocks Hopeian, featuring inclusive ensembles from Portugal and the UK. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance for hosting this forum, bringing together research, experience and best practice in the arts, culture and wellbeing space from across the international policy spectrum. I'd also like to acknowledge the other New Zealand participants in the conference, in particular Te Ora Auaha, who coordinated the New Zealand session later this evening, featuring some brilliant speakers. Aotearoa, New Zealand has a population of close to 5 million people, and we are a melting pot of culture, heritage and diversity. The New Zealand government puts wellbeing at the centre of everything we do. In fact, we've made a specific commitment to achieving our policy goals using a wellbeing framework which underpinned our government's first wellbeing budget in 2019. This saw us broaden the focus of our policy making to look beyond traditional measures of success such as gross domestic product to ensure all New Zealanders can lead lives of purpose, balance and meaning. Our specific wellbeing objectives centre around 5 areas: supporting the transition to a climate resilient, sustainable and low emissions economy, ensuring the future of work through new technologies and innovation and supporting into work those most affected by COVID-19, lifting Māori and Pacific incomes, skills and opportunities, reducing child poverty and improving wellbeing, and supporting improved physical and health outcomes for all New Zealanders. As we rebuild from COVID-19 by focusing on these objectives, we have a unique chance to build back better and ensure long-term wellbeing in Aotearoa, New Zealand. In support of the government's wellbeing objectives, the New Zealand Treasury, our lead advisor on economic and financial policy, has developed a living standards framework, a key tool in providing comprehensive policy advice. The framework identifies the things that matter most for New Zealanders' wellbeing, now and into the future, as well as the interdependencies and trade-offs between different areas of wellbeing. The Treasury has also developed He Ara Waiora, a framework giving an Indigenous and uniquely Māori perspective on questions of living standards and wellbeing. The term Waiora speaks to a broad conception of human wellbeing, grounded in wai, which is water, as the source of ora, which is life. He Ara Waiora presents a holistic approach to lifting the intergenerational wellbeing of all New Zealanders. I wish to speak to you today primarily from my perspective as Minister for Arts, Culture and Heritage, though I also hold the portfolios of social development, employment, disability issues and ACC. Of course, the first 3 of these portfolio areas are all directly related to CHW21, and it's been gratifying to see the overlap and broad impact of the work across my ministerial roles. I am proud to be part of a government that values our cultural sector as integral to our wellbeing as individuals and as a nation. Not only do arts and culture help lift us beyond the cares and concerns of everyday life, they also foster compassion and understanding. It is our creative thinkers who have advanced humanity, both socially and technologically, who will help us overcome the many challenges of the 21st century and who will allow us to achieve our wellbeing objectives across the wider economy. There are many areas in which arts and culture can add value, such as civic engagement, cultural identity and social connections, human capital, or people's capacity to engage in work, study, recreation and social activities, and social capital, which includes cultural and community identity, traditions and customs and common values and interests. All of this underlines how integral arts and culture are across many aspects of New Zealanders' lives. Like other nations, the COVID-19 pandemic has placed enormous strain on our arts and cultural sector and exacerbated the inequalities which exist within it. We're fortunate that our elimination strategy has meant we have no community transmission at this time. We made the decision to lock down hard and early when the virus first came to our shores, and it quickly became clear how important arts and culture are in reminding us of what is good in life and in keeping us connected with one another. It was particularly inspiring to see many of our artists and cultural institutions finding innovative ways to reach out to audiences online, bringing joy and comfort in a time of great anxiety for many. Sadly, our ongoing elimination strategy has at times required us to close museums, galleries and whare taonga as we deal with local outbreaks. It has stopped us gathering in theatres and on marae, put screen productions on hold, closed down festivals and disrupted our tikanga Māori and cultural practices intrinsic to our national identity. The livelihoods of our artists, musicians and other cultural sector workers were affected, And we know that these already tend to be careers lacking in income security, or that are lower paid than those in many other sectors. While we have fortunately been able to return to relative normality here in Aotearoa, the ramifications of closed borders continue to be felt by the cultural sector. In response to these difficult and unpredictable circumstances, the New Zealand government made a landmark investment of $374 million through our Arts and Culture COVID recovery program. This is around £190 million, a significant investment for a country of 5 million people. The program has provided extensive short-term relief to keep the arts, heritage, music and film sectors afloat, saving organisations and jobs. Not only that, it has also given us a unique opportunity to consider the future for the sector, including how we can reduce inequalities in access and outcomes for both artists and audiences. The program comprises more than 25 initiatives designed in partnership with funded agencies and sector stakeholders. It includes both short-term relief and longer-term support to allow people and organisations to survive, adapt and thrive. The focus of these initiatives ranged from Pasifika festivals held across the country each year, to touring musical groups and venues, to high-value New Zealand film and television productions, as well as many more. I'd like to focus on one of our major cross-sector funding initiatives, which I think most clearly demonstrates the government's understanding and prioritising of that relationship between arts and well-being, and addressing the inequalities which erode that relationship. The fund I wish to speak about is Te Tāhua Whakahaumaru, the Creative Arts Recovery and Employment Fund, or the CARE Fund. The fund has been designed with specific outcomes in mind to enhance access to and participation in the cultural sector, and to create employment and skill development opportunities. The 5 streams of the CARE Fund seek to support and sustain different areas of the cultural sector. The first of our 5 funding streams is Te Ahurea me te Toi Ora, Culture and Wellbeing. In this stream, the government has committed $18 million to support creative spaces. As some of you may know, creative spaces are venues in the community where those with mental health needs, disabled people, those looking for social connection, a range of different groups, spaces where they are welcomed and supported to practice and participate in the arts and in their communities. These spaces are inclusive by design and have an important role to play in enhancing the well-being of people too often at risk of being excluded from participating in their own communities. In a clear example of effective collaboration between government and the sector, the Ministry has partnered with Arts Access Aotearoa, an organisation with established knowledge of creative spaces and long-standing relationships in the community, to support the application process and successful recipients over the longer term. Funding creative spaces will support new jobs and expand existing roles to help build a more sustainable sector and skilled workforce. It will also enable creative spaces to increase the quality and reach of their services and programs, including into Māori and Pacific communities. It is crucial we do not underestimate the role the arts can play in health and well-being, allowing opportunities for connection and expression, nor the opportunities these spaces provide to develop and showcase artistic talent. So far, 19 creative spaces around the country have been awarded funding for new roles or additional staff hours to expand their services beyond their current client base, with more organisations set to benefit from a second funding round. More than 11,000 people a year use creative spaces throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand. With this funding, we could see participation rates lift by around 2,000 people per year over the next 3 years. A number of other initiatives within the Care Fund also seek to foster wellbeing through cultural experiences, and I'll touch on those briefly now. Our cultural installations and events funding is about bringing culture and creativity to people in our communities, outside of traditional cultural venues and directly into people's everyday lives. By funding installations and events that are free to attend and in spaces people regularly go, this initiative seeks to encourage broad public access to inspiring creative and cultural experiences. This could include, for example, an art exhibition in a shopping centre or a theatre performance in a city square that many people walk through. We're also prioritising funding for projects that are outside our main centres that are led by Māori or Pacific cultural sector practitioners and that support access for people with disabilities. Starting with a one-year pilot, our Cultural Activators initiative is taking a targeted approach to unlocking the huge creative potential in 8 communities which experience barriers to access and participation in cultural activities. Supported by local host organisations, experienced cultural sector practitioners will collaborate with communities to tell their stories, build their creative skills, and connect them with opportunities in the wider cultural sector. The upcoming Untold Stories initiative is about funding communities whose culture and experiences are not well known across Aotearoa, such as LGBTQI+, former refugee or migrant communities, to tell their stories and share their creativity. We'll also be investing in projects that showcase local culture and history in the regions, and the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Heritage is continuing to work across government to think about how we can address inequalities and reach those most vulnerable and socially isolated groups. I hope I provided a clear overview of how the New Zealand government is taking an approach to supporting the cultural sector in a way that puts wellbeing and increased equality front and centre. As with our wider COVID-19 recovery, in arts and culture we are seeking to build back better, to ensure better sustainability, better opportunities for creatives and better access to arts and cultural experiences for all New Zealanders. I wish this year's Culture, Health and Wellbeing International Conference every success. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Nau mai hoki mai, tēnā koe, Minister Sepuloni. So, as I mentioned before, our first session, the mahi will speak for itself. I'd like to introduce you to Eynon, Delamere and Riki Bennett. Kia ora kōrua.
Kia ora. Ka tira anō tēnā tātou e te ao whānui tonu. E tuku whakamihi kia koutou e whakarongo mai nei ki ēnei nā tukurua. Kua whākia tui ngā kōrero e pānaki nā taonga pūoro e hono atu ki o tātou hauora i roto i tēnei ao mate. I mua tērā ka huringa whakaaro ki ngā pare kawakawa o te motu. Ko tētahi nā tangata e kawea nei tēnei kaupapa a Richard Nuns. Koutou e kua nunumi ki te ao. Ko tēnei rā te whakawhāiti ki te tangi, ki te mihi, ki te purapura ki rata katoa. Me ki e korite. Awai hono rā ko tātou te hungora, tēnā koutou. So greetings, felicitations and salutations. I know it's probably 9-10 o'clock over there and we're just first early in the morning. But we'd like to welcome you to our session. I just spent some time remembering all those that have passed on before us. And one in particular who was at the beginning of the Renaissance of taonga pūoro, Richard Nuns, and a lot of those other ones that have passed on before. So in our tradition, every time we meet, we think about those loved ones that have paved the way for us, and that is part of our hauora. That's part of us recognising that they've done all the hard work for us, and should be a little bit easier going forward. Kua reki te maunga, ko wai papatea wa ko Ngāti Paia kau te hapu ko te whānau apa nui Teiwi. So I hail from a little place I like to call the centre of the universe, called Whitianga, and it's in the heart of Te Whānau Apa Nui. And like Borni said, Eynon Delamere is my name. We're going to talk a little bit about taonga pūoro and its usage and its healing processes and purposes for us as Māori. I guess this is what I would call an overview of the Māori worldview. And to be fair, there's not just one Māori worldview, and this is just from my living experiences and Riki's living experiences. It's got really nothing, everyone else will have their own experience. And I guess for us it's about celebrating all those experiences and pulling them together. So I'll pass you over to Riki, he'll introduce himself and then we'll get into our session.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Ko Riki Bennett ahau. My name is Riki Bennett. Ko Matawhaura te Maunga. My sacred mountain is Matawhaurua. Ko Rotoiti te Moana. My sacred lake is Rotoiti. Ko Kaituna te Aua. My sacred river is Kaituna. Ko Te Aro te Waka. My waka, or my canoe that my ancestors came on, is Te Arawa. Ko Ngāti Piki o te Iwi. I hail from the tribe known as Ngāti Piki. It's a privilege to be here today and also to be able to share with you some of the things that we've experienced here in Aotearoa, mainly working around the environmental space and also the healing space, using the environment as the conduit, if you like, taking people on journeys, mainly working with schools, young people, but also with adults as well. And as I mentioned, using the environment in its many forms. Taonga pūoro is one of those instruments that we use. Taonga pūoro actually is a generic name for lots of Māori instruments. But within the family of taonga pūoro, there are individual instruments associated with them. And again, they hail from the environment, from Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, from Rangi Nui, the Sky Father, and also from Tangaroa, the ocean. So kia ora koutou.
So kia ora Riki, just as an introduction to our session, we're doing this session in what we call matariki. Now, matariki o puanga are stars, and they symbolise for us in our hemisphere. About 28 days ago, matariki disappeared from our sight lines, so we couldn't see these stars. What's the name of that star again, Riki?
Pleiades?
Pleiades, yeah, there it is. So it disappeared from Aotearoa, and it's coming back. For some of us, we celebrate it when the new moon comes out, which is on the 2nd of July. But for others, this is the winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year, and we celebrate matariki from now for a month. And in that time of matariki, what we do is we remember the past and we celebrate the future. And we do that in some instances through taonga pūoro, through karakia, through just celebrations with our whānau. In fact, it's become a bit of a thing in Aotearoa where we try and squeeze as many Māori things in the time of matariki so that we can keep the year free or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Probably get in trouble for that. But it is true. I've got about 18 shows to go to in the next 3 weeks. And yeah, it's very interesting how the stars affect our instruments and Tangaroa, the god of the sea, or what we have as the god of the sea, and Tāne, the god of the forest. And Riki's right, we have Rangi and Papa, Rangi, the Sky Father, and Papa Tuanuku, and they have their own instruments. So the melodic instruments are all of Rangi, and we have the rhythmic instruments that are all of Papa Tuanuku, or Mother Earth. And obviously for us, Mother Earth is our heartbeat. And in this time of COVID-19, when we were locked down for how many weeks we were, I know some other countries were locked down way longer, but we saw the life force of Papa Tuanuku and Tangaroa, our Earth Mother, the life force of the sea, come back and regenerate. And we noticed that in the mornings you could hear the birds outside your window. We could see that actually the waterways are starting to get cleaner. So the Maori, or the life force, plays a very high part in these instruments and also a part of our healing. So in the Māori sense, traditional healing also calls on the environment, and we're trying to get back in tune with the environment, actually, because once the environment's in tune, then we'll be in tune. So that's all part of our ethos. Riki mentioned a few things, but I want to pick up on something that Borni mentioned about form and function. So for Māori, everything has a form, but it also has a function. So if we take our meeting houses and you have a look at those carvings, they're beautiful now. And in 1987, when Te Māori exhibition went round the world, well, to America and then round the world, we were recognised as an art form, not only in Aotearoa, but also around the world. Those carvings, all those things that went over, not only did they have a form, but they also had a function. And they were our libraries. They told us our stories. And just like our instruments here, and Riki, if you pass one of those, yep. We just have a look at this flute here, and it has a form, and it also has a function. And Riki's going to just play a little bit about, Riki's going to play a little bit about the function, and then we'll talk a little bit about the form. So, kia ora, Riki. The name of this instrument is called a pūoro. To Māori, pūoro embodies the spirit of Hene Rakatori, the goddess of flute music. You'll notice on the front it is carved, and normally the carvings represent the owner of the instrument itself, the genealogy, and in this case it represents Taumata Kapua, who is a captain of the Te Arawa Waka or canoe. It's made out of one piece of timber, which is split in half. It is hollowed out and then lashed back together. And one of our native timbers, known as tarata or pitasporum, well, it is pitasporum, eugenoides. It's used as a sealant. It's bled, and where the joint or where the instrument is joined back together, the gum of the tarata tree is smeared down the joint to prevent any air leaks. The lashing is done using one of our native plants known as kia or aka kia. It is harvested from the tree in a sustainable manner, ensuring that you leave enough of the aerial roots on the plant itself in order for it to sustain itself into the future. The root itself can be split in half or split into quarters. You'll notice it's sort of coloured red, and that's using red ochre, or what we call kokowai, which is mixed with shark oil, whale oil, or some of our plants also produce oils in their seeds, such as tea tuki, and also our native passion fruit known as kohia. When we take people out into the forest environment for healing, sometimes it's actually best not even to speak, but actually just to let the environment speak for itself. Listening to the birds, listening to the silence in the forest, listening to the wind blowing against blowing the leaves in the trees, the water flowing over the stones. And if anything, through COVID here in Aotearoa,
it made people actually reconnect with nature. Things that we get so busy in our day-to-day lives, we don't slow down. But COVID came along, and it actually did make people slow down. It did make people actually reconnect with the natural world which we live in. And these instruments are a vessel, if you like, which can help carry a person into that kind of serene space. So this is the pūteringo. And the little part that you heard played, this instrument actually has got very many different sounds to it. But we always say that instruments such as these are best played out in the environment. Though the other day I was playing at a Matariki event, which Eynon mentioned before, and behind the instruments you could hear the traffic noise, motorbikes going up and down the street, and that didn't really matter. That was all part of the day and the part of that event. But in reality, from a healing perspective, it is actually best played out in the natural world, out with the birds, out with the wind, out with the running streams. Yeah.
O tēnā koe, Rick, and you'll notice with taonga pūoro, there's a male and female sound. So there's not just one sound that comes out of it, there's a male and female sound. Now Ricky's just grabbed the hue, and like we said, everything on this table comes from a whakapapa. And so that's a genealogy. And so tāne, so rangi and papa, the sky father and the earth mother, they had a son called Tāne. Tāne Mahuta has heaps of names. Tāne Whakapiripiri, Tāne Te Waiora, heaps of different names. But most people know him as God of the forest. And then he had Hine Te Pūehu. Hine Te Pūehu. And so this here is a hue, which it comes from her. And when you hear it, you will actually feel the heartbeat of Papa Tuanuku as we go through this. So I just want to make a point. Most of our taonga pūoro come from a genealogy, and that genealogy connects us back to the environment. And that's the most important part about traditional instruments, is the connection back to the environment and back to rangi and papa. So if you want to have a bit of a...
So as Eynon mentioned, different tribal groups around Aotearoa have their own pūrākau or stories associated with the instruments. In this case, as Eynon mentioned, Hine Pūtehue was the atua of the hue. Hue was brought to Aotearoa traditionally by Māori. It was brought here as a food source, but also as a storage containers, either for carrying water or otherwise for preserving food. If it was used for preserving food, then it was known as taha huahua. The food vessels were adorned with feathers of whatever bird was on the inside. Normally they were roasted, the birds were roasted, the fat was gathered, the birds were put on the inside of the vessel and then covered completely with the hinu or the fat of the bird, which was stored on the inside. And the reason for the feathers being adorning the vessel was they acted as a jar label. So later on, if you went to your pātaka or your food storage house and you wanted to have, for instance, a kaka, which is one of our native parrots, you'd identify which vessel actually had that food source in it by the feathers on the outside. It's also used for representing the manawa of Papa Tuanuku, or the heartbeat of Papa Tuanuku. So I'll demonstrate that now. Tuanuku.
If you'd gone on for 20 more minutes, our session would have been over. Anyway, kia ora, tēnā koe Riki. And Riki's right, you could feel the heartbeat in that, and you could actually feel his heart speed up because of these lights. But I guess, like I want to touch on the point that Riki said, that these are our stories and our experiences only, then other people will have theirs, and they're all valid. We don't say ours is the only story and we're the only ones that play this. In fact, Rewi and Riki and other people are, well, they're what we call tohungas in this, and I'm a tauira, still learning. So just wanted to touch on, when we talk about genealogy and into these instruments, they basically, most of the instruments fall into two realms. One is they come from the sea, or tangaroa, or they come from Tāne, the god of the forest. So they come from either one of those two settings. Now, like I said in the beginning, with when we take the rhythmic instruments that come from Papa Tuanuku, such like the hue, we have the porotiti, we have poi, we have a number of other things that talk to the heartbeat of Papa Tuanuku, of the Earth Mother. And you'll hear these Earth Mother and Sky Father come up quite often, not only in our kōrero around the taonga, but also they come up in karakia. And that's another form of healing, is when we do karakia. And the instruments accompany the karakia, and they add that with the vibrations or the sounds, it does another pitch and another level, and invokes a higher learning or a higher understanding. And so we're going to just have do a karakia, and Riki's going to play behind it, and then we'll have just talk a little bit about the karakia and talk about the instrument and how it was all pieced together. So, tēnei karakia. So this karakia is a wairea, or what we say that is a karakia that's used to actually flow through and clear spaces and clear your mind and clear all negative energies. Ko takawa nui, ko takawa ro, ko takawa tuanga huruma no, ko takawa waere hai whakanō I te tapu I te mana I te mauri ko pupuri ki rota ki tēnei meaninga. Oe ki whakapua ki rangi kia uwerangi ki te retua rehua ki te tipu e whakatau ngā puna tapu ngā tua. Oe ki whakaraurika hei te mauri a tupua tohe tawa e rea tupua. Wērere ko ngā puhu, ko ngā weo, ko ngā mare, ko ngā ritu, ko ngā take, ko ngā puhu, ki ngā ko ngā wānanga, ko ngā taura, ko ngā tauira. Oia ka muarea I te putuputu ngā hei whakaputu ngā hiu ki te whaiao ki te ao mārama. Mai te tupua. Mai te tawito. Mai te kahui o ngā riki. Uhi, wero, tauana mai te mauri. Haumi hui taiki. So that's how taonga pūoro was used in karakia to enhance and to get your mind tuned into a higher level. And it's all about, if we take taonga pūoro, pū meaning short and oro meaning reverberation or sound. And so short sounds that reverberate. And for us, we do a lot of this stuff in the morning, at about the time that we're in now. It's a bit later now, but say 6 in the morning, we do a lot of those, we do a lot of karakia in between those times, and a lot of playing of these taonga pūoro in between the change of light. And for us, that's moving from one world into another. So we clear all our, we clear the way for us to have a good day, and also could be used to clear buildings or whatever. So that taonga pūoro there is just enhances the kōrero or the words of the karakia. And the karakia talked about going up into the 12 heavens and having a look and clearing all those things, that anything that belongs up there stays up there and doesn't stay on Papatua Nuku or our Mother Earth. It goes back up to the heavens, up to where they belong. Sometimes they sneak down here for different things and we have to clear them up there. And so that, for us, I guess, for Riki and myself, we have done that quite often and we do it quite regularly, just to make sure that the passage is right going forward. And earlier on this morning we did that karakia, or a karakia, in the same vein with all the Aotearoa participants.
The next instrument I want to talk about is the nguru which is a tooth from a sperm whale. How I got hold of this instrument, it was actually gifted to me as a koha by the local tribe from Tāmaki Makaurau here, known as Te Kawarau-Amaki. I was involved with the stranding about 15 years ago, where 12 sperm whales stranded. And there were about probably 2 of them were over 50 tonne in weight. Some of them were dissected to see what they had been feeding upon. But traditionally, whales were seen as a gift from Tangaroa, the god of the ocean, because it brought people, if it was fish that is, fresh meat which they could consume, oil which were turned into oil lamps so they could actually light the inside of the houses. Bones were turned into instruments or tools and also weapons. And blubber again was melted down for the oil, but the teeth were turned into a nguru or a flute such as this. If you get a tight shot on this instrument here, you can see it actually represents a whale. There's the eye, the mouth, which is just the same form as you would see if it were a sperm whale, with the teeth on the bottom jaw. In this part of the instrument here, there are 12 links linking the 12 whales were stranded at the time. And through my job, because I work in conservation, it was quite sad to see these whales strand. They were spread over about a 4-kilometre stretch of the beach, and it attracted thousands of people out to visit these whales whilst they were stranded. But whales of that size, there's nothing that we could actually do to save them because of their sheer weight. When they come ashore, they collapse within themselves. People were coming out, bringing flowers. Different ethnic groups were coming out and saying prayers in their own way. And once that was over, then the whale remains were given to the iwi, or the tribe of that particular area, to be used for cultural purposes. And this is how I actually got hold of this tooth, which was gifted to me by Te Kawarau-Amaki for my involvement in that stranding. And I'll demonstrate the sound that it actually that it produces. A lot of the instruments, particularly bone and teeth like this, are best played in an environment, especially if the atmosphere is quite noisy in the background, because bone and teeth of their density, they can produce quite a sharp sound which can cut over the background sounds of the environment. But again, because the instrument comes from the ocean, the whakapapas, or the genealogy, comes from Tangaro, and it is best again played in the environment like most of the instruments, or like all of the instruments actually. But because it's from the sea, it sings of the sea. It's a lot of people say that the instruments sound eerie, but to the player it doesn't sound like that. It can actually take you on a journey. If you ride the sound of the instrument, you end up by riding it into eternity, if you like. Nowadays, the instruments are often played in the modern context, in stage shows, in live theatres, and behind a lot of the recordings for films, and so it's also been brought in a modern way as well, which I think is really awesome, because it's you see progression, you see people's creativity coming out, but in the way that we play the instruments, in terms of a healing instrument, it does take people on a journey home, if you like, a journey within, and it's a calming instrument, like most of the instruments.
I think a lot of our karakia, a lot of our healing is done next to water, ocean and fresh water, and for us it's important that we understand the range of healing techniques within Tangaroa and within Tāne. Another instrument from Papatua Nuku, or the Mother Earth, is the porotiti. Now, porotiti has a whakapapa. It comes down to Rangi and Papa had Tāne Mahuta, who hooked up, for want of a word, with Hine Titama, and they had Hine Rauwharangi, and she had Hine Ruarangi, and Kātahi ka porotiti. So that genealogy is rather important. And the porotiti, this one in particular, is a paunamu, or a greenstone, a treasure that come from Ngaitahu, or the South Island, where both Riki and myself whakapapa too, somewhere along the line. No, but at least I'm direct, he's around the corner. And I have to get a good shot up of the mic here, but So the porotiti had a number of uses. For instance, when the baby was clogged up with mucus, the mother used to play the porotiti keep the breathing right and to try and get rid of that mucus. Also, I don't know how good the sound was because obviously it doesn't make a big noise, but when you're close, those vibrations get into your blood cells and they get into your body, and that also helps and affects the cleaning of mucus and getting it out there. When wahine are pregnant too, it's also good to help the breathing and expanding and going through with the porotiti. So it had a number of different usages. And Riki backed that up with, you explain what that is, Rick.
This instrument here is known as a pupurangi. It's one of our snails. It's a endemic, only found here in New Zealand.
It's a good snack too.
And it's also it's known as also as a kauri snail. Kauri being one of our native trees, our largest growing native tree here in New Zealand. It's a nocturnal, so it comes out at night. When it crawls, the shell goes up on its side, and it can actually slither into little wee crevices. It's also it eats other worms, so it's carnivorous, and its teeth point inwards. So once a snail gets into its mouth, there's no way once a worm gets into its mouth, there is no way of that worm actually being able to get away. It was one of the first instruments used, I would say, by Māori, because it's a natural form, and in its natural form, you can actually get a sound from this particular shell. So known as pupurangi. We also have another shell known as pūharakeke, which is a shell associated with the flax plant. And flax is one of our widely used native plants used here in New Zealand, used for making all sorts of things that our people actually required, from clothing to footwear to traps, fishing nets, and also used as a rongo, was a healing ointment from the gum, from the leaves of the harakeke, used for burns, if you had sores or abrasions, and then it was actually used on top of the sores as a healing ointment. The roots of the harakeke plant were also boiled, and only a teaspoon of it was taken. And this was actually mainly used at times if the person who had consumed a lot of food, or they had worms and they were trying to extract the worms from their tinana or from their bodies, then it was actually used in that way. So it was used as a purgative, if you like. If you're a Jenny Craig follower, no use going to Jenny Craig, just go directly to the harakeke bush, dig up the roots and boil the roots, and you'll lose weight pretty quickly. So the pupu harakeke, it makes a sound like this. That's the two shells, one kauri shell, snail shell, and the pupu harakeke.
Yeah, both of those instruments, again, whakapapa back to tāne and to papa tuanuku and rangi. So it's a key story. I guess for us, it's difficult, this term arts in the Māori scenario, because we don't have a word that means art. We've adapted a word to mean art now, which is toi. But traditionally, we don't have a word for art. And primarily, again, is what Borni mentioned before. It's form and function, not just form. So everything had a purpose. Everything had a whakapapa, and everything had a purpose. So for us, I guess, creativity and healing and power of the arts is so undersold. It's and we're only looking at traditional taonga here, and we have traditional stories for the healing, but we all know that any form of art or artistic endeavours is healing, especially when you're involved in the making and the doing. And so a lot of these instruments, even the making of them, actually form a part of the healing process. You play yours and I'll back you up there.
So in terms of bone instruments or koiwi, we had koiwi tangata, which is human bone. At some cases, human bones were used and turned into a wind instrument. In the case of Hinamua and Tutanakai, a famous legend or pūrako from Rotorua, where Tutanakai was enticing Hinamua over to Makoia Island in the middle of Lake Rotorua by playing this kowawo made from the forearm of a tohunga or of a priest who was slain due to seen to be eating berries on the poroporo tree when he was forbidden to do so. So that's one example. Dog bone as well. Dogs were introduced to Aotearoa by Māori, brought here as pets, but also at times, unfortunately for the dog, it was turned into food, but it was also used, the pelts were turned into cloaks, and also the bones were used for awls, for piercing leather or skin, and also used for flutes, such as this particular little flute here that I've got here. I haven't played it for a little while, so we'll see how we go. Eynon's going to play the tumutumu. Tumutumu is a rhythmic instrument used as a percussion instrument, normally made from hard timbers. So some of the hard timbers that we've got here in Aotearoa are things like manaka, kānaka, ake, maire, and those are the instruments which are also used for making weapons and also making tools. These particular pieces of tumutumu come from a tree known as mingi. So when you're making a rhythmic instrument or percussion instrument, then you would be looking at things which would ring. So again, the hard timbers. But also for tumutumu, bone was also used in the case of tōroa, which is our albatross. Bones like that were used to bang against each other. So yeah, again, another percussion instrument. For some reason unknown to us, the pahu or the drum, when our people came here from the islands in the Pacific, where the drum is often used, even today, it came down to New Zealand here, and they didn't take it on as much as they did in the islands. But there is still evidence that the pahu was still played here. There was a particular tree known as pukatea, which one of the characteristics of the pukatea is that it hollows out on the inside. And in Tūhoi, or another part of New Zealand, there was a pukatea tree there which was hollow, and the outside part of the trunk, still standing, was beaten. And apparently it was used as like a gong instrument, but the sound of it would carry over the valleys. So that was one of the early representations of a of a pahu used here.
To symbol that there was manuhiri or visitors in the area. And sometimes that means beware, because you don't know if the visitors are coming for a cup of tea or for you to be the cup of tea. It was rather important in their whakapapa, in their history.
So that was the sound of the koiwi kuri, or dog bone flute. So nowadays, well, the world now, we're all into recycling. Even your pet dog can be recycled, and you know, it gets to live on in another form. No, I'm just joking, but one of the things, and traditionally, that's how bones were functioned as well, or functional.
Yeah, and again, you listen to the higher pitch of the bone flute and all those bone instruments, and that takes us to the higher realm, the higher frequency, and that's a higher frequency of healing. And so it's really important that we understand the frequencies of healing, and also it's the vibrations that really sort of give us that healing spirit or healing whakaaro, which is ideas or thoughts.
Another instrument which we want to demonstrate is a Polynesian instrument known as the vibo in Tahiti. And I was in Tahiti a couple of years ago prior to lockdown, and I saw these instruments in the museum. The noise is produced using the wind from a nostril by blocking off one side of a nostril and blowing through the hole at the top here. And so it's actually used in that particular way. They've got 3 finger holes. Some of them actually have even more than 3 finger holes. But this particular flute here has 3 finger holes. So I'll just demonstrate the sound that this particular flute makes. the sound of the river.
And that's all part of the Great Pacific Triangle, Hawaii, Tahiti. We all have the same stories, Rarotonga, we all have the same stories, the same wairua, and we also have the same spirit, and we also have the same genealogy. So in terms of our whakapapa, we all can link together. On the big island in Hawaii, there's there's a little island that they said Maui was pulling towards them, that's sort of stuck in the middle there, and there's a little pathway out to it now. And they believe that he broke the karakia, and so that's why the island stayed there. We have the same story about Maui, who pulled up our island. So that, there's a lot of similarities as we go along the way. In Rarotonga, the inner road, which not many people know about or go down anymore, are called Taratapu o Toi. Toi is a great ancestor, great navigator, also known as Toi Kairākau, Toi Te Huatahi. Both went over came over to Aotearoa, but also transversed the Pacific. So a lot of our instruments are the same, and I guess Riki alluded to the pahu. So just in wrapping up, we're just going to do one last waiata. And this waiata talks about matariki. And matariki for us, like I said earlier, is the new year. Anyway, I better keep talking. We're running out of time, so play away, Mr. Bennett. Te rohi a ki runga, ki te rangi, whakakahuta, mai ngā tua, whaputa matariki, Parere whanui, ko te tohu te rā, ko ngā tauha ke te heke. Awaiti waeta, ururangi, Tupua rangi, waipuna rangi, waputa matariki, parere whanui, ko te tohu te wā, ko ngā tauha ke te heke. Ka heke iho nei, kia papa atua nuku, ki ngā maratapu, mo ngā tauha kei te heke. Paputa matariki, Parere whanui, ko te tohu te rā, ko ngā tauha ke te heke. Ka huri ngā whakaro, a mo te hunga kuariro, ki tu o matariki, mai mai rā i te pō, Kia ora koutou. Kia ora tātou. Thanks for having us. Ramahi.
Kia ora. Kia ora kōrua. Ka mihi atu ki a kōrua. Tino wai Māori e koutou I tēnei ata. Thank you, my friends. That was an amazing start to our morning, your evening. You won't feel it, but in the room at the moment, it feels so settled. Tau is what we call it. So settled. It's such a beautiful, beautiful way to start our day. Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Man, we're lucky. We're going to move on to Ōtautahi, which is Christchurch here in the South Island in New Zealand. Again, the mahi will speak for itself. I'm just going to read for you a whakatauki, a Māori proverb that will help us to move into the mahi. Anei te tahi whakatauki. Mō wana puke puke e ekengia e te waka. Kia ora koutou.